answer to both questions is yes, they should recognise the state of Palestine. Other countries are doing that. I think it's essential that we make sure that, if there is to be a two-state solution, there'll have to be two states. There's just self-evident with it, and the lack of being able to do that just means that essentially people are made stateless by not doing that. And I think more and more countries are now have seen what's happened in Gaza and are coming around to the opinion that they have to now back and recognise Palestine as a state. It's utterly shameful how the UK government, the Labour Party, and others have failed to stand up for the people of Palestine. It's absolutely clear that the terrorist attack by Hamas was murderous and unforgivable and was horrendous, but the response to that has been disproportionate. And we cannot, in international law, have collective punishment for a people where we're seeing innocent children, women, and men being killed in their thousands as part of this response. There should have been a proper call for a ceasefire. And the SNP were the only party at Westminster that were pushing that. And it's only as a result of the SNP, and I'll leave the trickery of the House of Commons and the Labour Party to one side for a minute, but it's only as a result of the SNP pushing that there is any vote, even with conditions in the House of Commons for a ceasefire, calling for a ceasefire to protect people. The other point is it's utterly shameful for the UK government to be continuing to authorise arms sales to Israel for use in Palestine and Gaza at the moment, because we should not be aiding a situation where there appear to be, and I'm using that word as a very, trying to be very balanced, but there are situations where there are war crimes being committed, and there is again a situation of collective punishment for people and utter devastation. The fact that people in Gaza are still struggling for water, for aid, they're still having to endure privation that we can only imagine. For example, women having to have cesarean sections on tarpaulin in the middle of the street. These are things that in the 21st century we shouldn't be seeing anywhere. And to be complicit in moving that forward is not acceptable. So again, the short answer to the question is, yes, we should have an immediate ceasefire. The UK government should be calling for that. So should the Labour Party, and it should be unconditional to get that aid into people right away, and so that there can be some normality, if you can call it that, returning to people's lives. And we should be stopping arms sales into a war zone.
That's great. Thanks, Drew. Peter?
Yes and yes, as simple as that. I mean, I have to say, both Drew and I have spoken at the Highland Palestine events. We've supported the Locarbo Supports Palestine event because it's just a no-brainer. Peace is not political in that sense. It's not. It just shouldn't be that difficult a concept. Nobody is excusing Hamas, or nobody should be excusing Hamas's actions on October 7th. But none of those things happen without the context. None of those things happen. And quite apart from anything else, that proportionality that Drew's talking about is bad, or the disproportionality is bad for Israel. It's not good for the citizens of Israel either. It's not good for their national psyche. It continues that sense of trauma. It doesn't get the hostages back. The whole thing is a bin fire. And, actually, I really respect the countries like Ireland that have, I said, beware simple solutions. That slashing through the Gordian knot and just saying, right, well, we'll declare them as a state then, actually is very, very clever, because it, as Drew said, you don't have a two-state solution without two states. So let's make the second state and just get on with it. And that kind of continued isolation from the international community of Palestine has really shown up the hypocrisy of America and Britain and our kind of lackey obsession for the pound. I mean, you saw it as soon as the stuff with the shipping and Hezbollah. We're not going to do anything about thousands of children being killed, but if you mess with our Amazon deliveries, we are coming for you and we will rain down fire and brimstone. And isn't that a telling indictment of the attitude of Rishi Sunak and his government? So no, yes and yes, and it's just an absolute no-brainer. And I would actually be prepared to sanction trying to get the UN together to actually put troops on the ground just to send them back to their corners and stop the killing. Because as Drew said, I mean, it's medieval. What those people are suffering is just outrageous, and you kill 30 to 1. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, yes and yes is the answer to the question.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, and thank you to Mark for the question. I think it's a really complex situation we've got over there, and obviously, what happened to the people of Israel was unacceptable. We condemn terrorism at all levels. And that, however, does not open a carte blanche retaliation as we've seen. I think there has to be proportionality here. And what we've seen through UK government is we have trebled the amount of aid that we're providing right into Gaza. I understand that it's a very difficult situation over there, and the levels of killing is not acceptable on any level. But I think, as we're talking towards working for peace and working towards that two-state solution, there's a lot that needs to be done. It needs to be done quickly. We need to see the hostages released. But I am pleased to see that some of the aid is getting in there. But as I said, it is a really complex situation, and I do think that the UK government were adopting the right thing, and it is something that was kept under review and is being kept under review on a regular basis.